What does it mean to truly reclaim your power, dear women of the world? Imagine a moment where the noise of pursuit fades, where the echo of your own voice rises above the clamor of expectation, and where silence becomes not a void but a canvas for self-discovery. Welcome to She Thinks, a sanctuary where we unravel the profound layers of a woman's masterpiece woven with emotion, instinct, and resilience. Today, we embark on a philosophical journey inspired by the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, reframed through a feminist lens to explore what happens when you, as a woman, choose to step back from the endless dance of seeking validation. When the messages stop, when the effort withdraws, what shifts within you and within those who once took your presence for granted? This exploration is not just about relationships with others, it's about the relationship you cultivate with yourself. Drawing from Stoic principles, we'll dive into the subtle yet transformative reactions that unfold when you embrace detachment not as surrender, but as an act of strength. Whether you're navigating the complexities of modern connections, breaking free from societal norms, or seeking clarity in your own worth, this video offers insights to empower you. At She Thinks, we believe philosophy isn't a distant relic. It's a living tool for women to rise above oppression, redefine freedom, and inspire the next generation. Stay with us as we decode this fascinating dynamic, how silence can spark curiosity, reflection, and even attraction while grounding you in unshakable self-respect. We're not here to dictate your path but to illuminate it, inviting you to reflect alongside us. Your voice matters. Leave a comment with your thoughts, share your experiences, or suggest topics you'd love us to explore next. Together, we'll weave a tapestry of resilience and wisdom crafted for women by women. Let's begin this journey of empowerment where every step back becomes a leap toward your truest self. A woman's mind is a universe unto itself, complex, layered, and luminous, shaped by the ebb and flow of emotions, instincts, and the unyielding strength that courses through her being. When someone who once pursued her with fervor, be it a lover, a friend, or even the world itself, suddenly withdraws their attention, the shift reverberates deep within her psyche. This isn't a fleeting ripple, it's a tidal wave that stirs the waters of her soul, awakening curiosity, prompting reflection, and sometimes igniting a longing she didn't know she harbored. Why does this happen? What alchemy transforms absence into a mirror for her innermost thoughts? Today, we turn to the ancient Stoics not as distant patriarchs, but as guides whose wisdom we reclaim for the modern woman, illuminating her path to empowerment with clarity and grace. The initial surprise. Picture this: you've been the one holding the threads of connection, weaving conversations, offering your time, pouring your energy into a dynamic that once felt reciprocal. Then, one day, you pause. You stop reaching out. For the woman on the other side of this silence, perhaps you, perhaps another, the first wave to crash is surprise. A rhythm once steady has fractured, leaving an unfamiliar stillness in its wake. She wonders, why has she stopped? What has changed? Did I misstep? These questions bloom like wildflowers in the fertile soil of uncertainty, each petal tinged with curiosity, irritation, or even a quiet ache. Yet, here's where Stoicism offers its first gift to women, a gift we've too long been denied by history's selective lens. It whispers, focus on what you can command: your own heart, your own will. Her reaction, whether a storm of emotion or a gentle breeze of indifference, belongs to her alone. You, the woman who steps back, need not chase her thoughts or mend her confusion. Instead, you stand firm, a sentinel of your own peace. Imagine you've been the one texting first, planning gatherings, carrying the weight of connection on your shoulders. Over time, the balance stilts and you feel unseen, undervalued, a shadow of the vibrant force you are. So you withdraw, not out of spite, but out of reverence for yourself. In that silence, she may grapple with her own questions, but you wield the silence as a sculptor wields clay. It's not merely absence, it's creation. Space emerges, space for her to ponder her own heart, and space for you to reclaim yours. Stoicism teaches that this pause is not weakness but power, a power rooted in composure, in refusing to let external winds dictate your worth. You don't rush to explain or soothe, you let the quiet speak. And in that stillness, you rediscover the woman you are when the world isn't watching, a woman whose value isn't tethered to another's gaze. Rediscovery and reflection. When you cease the relentless pursuit, when the calls stop, the messages fade, the effort recedes, something remarkable unfolds. For her, the woman accustomed to your presence, the ground shifts beneath her feet. She may feel unmoored, puzzled by the void where your voice once rang. Her mind turns inward, replaying moments like a film reel, conversations, gestures, the warmth of your attention now gone. She asks herself, was it me? Did I push her away? This introspection is her journey, her burden to bear. But for you, the woman who steps back, this is a sacred invitation to turn the mirror on yourself. Stoicism, reimagined through a woman's eyes, urges you not to fixate on her musings, but to dive into your own depth. Ask, was I true to myself in this dance? Did I bend too far, give too much, chase too hard at the cost of my own light? Perhaps you've been the one always reaching, always mending, always striving to hold the fragile threads of connection intact. When you stop, she notices, but don't wait for her response. Use this pause to unearth your own roots. Were you seeking her approval to fill a void within? Did you trade your boundaries for her fleeting glance? This isn't a moment for shame, it's a crucible for growth. Stoicism doesn't judge, it illuminates. Maybe you'll see that you leaned too heavily on her validation, that you dimmed your own flame to keep hers alight. Or perhaps you'll find that you poured yourself into a vessel that couldn't hold you. This reflection isn't about regrets, it's about rising. You reclaim your authenticity not as a gift to her but as a vow to yourself. While she sifts through her own feelings, you build a fortress of self-awareness, one brick of courage, one stone of clarity at a time. True strength, the Stoics remind us, lies not in her return, but in your resolve to become the woman you were meant to be. Boundaries probing. Now, imagine she reaches out, a text, a call, a subtle nudge across the digital ether. After your silence, she tests the waters, perhaps with a casual "Hey, how are you?" or a post meant to catch your eye. This isn't always malice, often it's instinct, a way to gauge whether your absence was a fluke or a fortress. For too long, women have been taught to bend, to yield, to answer every call. But you, armed with Stoic wisdom, see this for what it is, a chance to stand firm. The world might expect you to leap at her signal, to rush back with explanations or eagerness. Yet Stoicism offers a different path, one of restraint, of dignity. Her probe isn't your command. You pause, breathe, and ask, does this align with my soul's compass? There might whisper fear of losing her, fear of being forgotten, but you silence it with a truth women have fought to claim. Your worth isn't hers to measure. Maybe you respond, calm and measured, a ripple rather than a flood. Or perhaps you let the silence linger, a testament to your resolve. This isn't a game, it's a revelation. By holding your ground, you declare that your peace is non-negotiable. She may seek to pull you back into orbit, but you've learned to orbit yourself. Stoicism teaches that strength isn't in bending to every breeze but in rooting yourself in principle. When she tests your boundaries, she's testing your light, and you shine brighter by refusing to dim. This is the power of a woman who knows her value, not in how others reach for her but in how she reaches for herself. When she seeks answers. Days pass, weeks even, and then it comes a message, a plea, why did you stop, what happened? She seeks closure, a map to navigate the silence you've drawn around yourself. Once you might have felt compelled to explain, to soften the edges of her confusion with your words. But now, you stand at a crossroads and Stoicism lights the way. Do you owe her your truth at the expense of your tranquility? Consider this, you step back because the dynamic drained you, her energy faltered where yours soared, or perhaps the connection lacked the depth your spirit craves. Her questions pull at you, but Stoicism reminds you of a truth women have too often forgotten. Your peace is yours to guard. Marcus Aurelius, a voice we reclaim for the feminine, said you have power over your mind, not outside events. Her need for answers is her storm to weather, not yours to tame. Silence becomes your shield, not cold, not cruel, but sovereign. You don't reopen wounds to ease her mind, you honor the boundary you've set. This isn't about denying her humanity, it's about affirming yours. By choosing not to explain, you choose yourself not out of arrogance, but out of a deep, quiet love for the woman you're becoming. She may seek, but you stand resolute, letting the unanswered questions weave their own closure. In this act you embody a strength history has denied women, the right to let silence be enough. The shift in emotions. When you withdraw and the text cease, the calls fade, the space between you grows, she feels it. Emotions rise like tides, anger, sharp and jagged, sadness, heavy and soft, or relief, a quiet exhale. These waves crash against her shores, not yours. For centuries, women have been conditioned to soothe, to mend, to absorb others' storms. But Stoicism offers a radical reprieve, her feelings are hers, fleeting as clouds across a vast sky. If she's angry, she might lash out words flung like arrows, blaming you for the void. If she's sad, she might reach with trembling hands, mourning the loss of your light. If she's relieved, she might drift away, free from a bond she'd already loosened. Each response is a thread in her tapestry, not yours to unravel. Epictetus, another Stoic voice we reframe, taught, it's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters. You don't rush to fix her anger, comfort her sadness, or chase her relief. You stand still, a lighthouse amid her tempest, guiding yourself home. Her emotions pass as all things do. Your task is to remain a woman unshaken, not by her storms, but by your own steady pulse. This is freedom, not bending to every gust but rising above it. Her relief might sting, her anger might burn, but none of it defines you. You've learned to let go not out of indifference, but out of a fierce commitment to your own serenity. In this you rewrite the script of womanhood, one where your peace is paramount. Recognizing your value, step back and something shifts, not just in her, but in you. She begins to weigh your worth, tracing the contours of your absence. Did she see your steadiness before? Your grace under pressure? Your quiet power? She might wonder now, but her gaze isn't your mirror. Too often, women have been taught to seek their reflection in others' eyes, lovers, society, the world. Stoicism dismantles this lie. Your value is yours, forged in the fire of your character, not polished by her regard. When you stop reaching, she may miss the anchor you were, the way you held space, the strength you carried without fanfare. But you don't wait for her to notice. You turn inward, asking, am I living my truth? Am I honoring my principles? Your worth isn't in her longing, it's in the woman you are when the room is empty. Stoicism teaches that true wealth lies in self-sufficiency, not isolation, but a radiant independence that needs no applause. She might see your light anew, drawn to the confidence of a woman who doesn't chase. Yet whether she does or not, you stand unshaken. Your value isn't a gift she bestows, it's a flame you tend. This is the Stoic woman's creed: to know herself, to trust herself, to be herself beyond the reach of external tides. In stepping back, you don't diminish, you rise, a testament to the resilience that defines you. When she reaches out, then one day she reaches a text, a call, a tentative bridge across the silence. Curiosity, perhaps, or a pang of loss drives her. Your heart quickens, but Stoicism steadies it. Do you leap back into the fray, or do you pause, a woman in command of her own narrative? This is your moment, not to prove, but to reflect. Her message might read, hey, it's been a while. How are you? Once you'd have poured yourself into a reply, eager to mend the gap. Now you breathe. You weigh her words against your soul's compass. What do I seek here? Your response, if it comes, is measured, a ripple, not a flood. I'm well, thank you. Hope you're doing okay. Simple, calm, a mirror of your strength. Or perhaps you let the silence hold, a choice not of scorn, but of sovereignty. Stoicism teaches that your power lies in intention, not impulse. Her reach doesn't bind you, it tests you. You stop chasing, not to win her, but to win yourself. If she seeks to reclaim your light, let her meet the woman you've become, grounded, whole, unshaken. This isn't about her return, it's about your reign. You've built a palace of peace within, and no one's knock can topple it. In this you embody the Stoic woman, dignified, deliberate, divine. Embracing your own path. Finally, you stand at the threshold of your own becoming. You've stopped reaching, stopped chasing, and the questions linger. Will she notice? Will she care? Let them fade. The true shift isn't in her, it's in you. Stoicism, reframed for the woman's soul, reveals that happiness isn't in her reply, her interest, her validation. It's in the quiet fortress of your spirit, where self-respect reigns supreme. When you withdraw, she might stir, curious, reflective, silent. She might reach, or she might not, but her choice isn't your crown. You've unshackled yourself from the need to control her, to win her, to be seen by her. This is freedom, not abandonment, but ascension. Imagine the days passing, the phone still, your heart steady. You're no longer tethered to her orbit, you've claimed your own. The Stoics knew this truth: power lies in letting go of what you cannot hold, embracing what you can yourself. This path isn't a retreat, it's a revolution. You walk forward, not waiting for her footsteps to follow, but listening to your own. Whether she returns or fades, you thrive, resilient, radiant, rooted in the values that define you. This is the Stoic woman's legacy, not in what she gains from others, but in what she gives herself. In silence, in strength, in the unwavering choice to be whole. As we draw this journey to a close, let's pause and breathe in the wisdom we've uncovered. Stepping back isn't a retreat, it's a reclamation, a bold act of self-love guided by Stoicism's timeless light. At She Thinks, we've explored how silence reshapes not just the dynamics around you, but the woman within you. It's a space where curiosity blooms, where reflection deepens, where your value shines independent of anyone's gaze. This isn't about manipulating others. It's about empowering yourself, breaking free from the chains of expectation to stand tall in your own truth. Your peace, your strength, your growth, these are the treasures Stoicism offers. Gifts women have long been denied but now reclaim with fervor. Whether she reaches out or drifts away, you remain a beacon of resilience, a testament to the power of self-respect. We'd love to hear from you. How has stepping back transformed your life? Share your thoughts below or simply type "I choose self-respect" to affirm your journey. Like this video if it's poked to you, it helps She Thinks reach more women seeking empowerment, and share it with those who need this message. Before you go, join us for a special discussion with Em and James, two voices who dive deeper into this philosophy of freedom right after this. Their insights will enrich our conversation, so stay tuned. Thank you for being here, for choosing yourself, and for walking this path with She Thinks. Until next time, stay grounded, stay true, and keep rising.
Ever feel like you're constantly pouring energy into a relationship and, you're always the one reaching out, trying to make things work?
Mm-hmm.
Well, today's deep dive, I think, might give you a whole new perspective.
Okay.
We're going to explore what happens when a woman decides to just step back.
Okay.
And we're going to use the principles of Stoic philosophy to kind of guide us.
Interesting.
We've got this transcript from a She Thinks video.
Yeah.
And it's full of these intriguing ideas about how stepping back can actually be like a source of empowerment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, buckle up.
That's a good one. What's fascinating about this whole idea of Stoic empowerment is that it really challenges a lot of our ingrained beliefs about relationships.
Right.
We're often told that to get what we want, we need to be assertive, go after it.
Yeah.
But Stoicism kind of offers a different path. It emphasizes inner strengths and self-control.
So instead of chasing after someone or something, you're choosing to focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
That's almost counterintuitive, especially in the world of dating and relationships.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that our energy is precious and we get to choose where we direct it. So instead of always chasing external validation, Stoicism encourages us to cultivate this sense of inner worth that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval.
Okay. So let's kind of paint a picture here. Imagine a woman who's been actively investing in a connection. Maybe it's romantic, maybe it's a friendship, and suddenly she decides to stop initiating contact.
Right.
What kind of reaction do you think she might encounter from the other person?
Well, initially, there's probably going to be some surprise, maybe even a little confusion. The other person is so used to a certain dynamic.
Right.
And now, all of a sudden, the rules have changed.
Yeah.
They might start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Or maybe they'll even try to fill that void by, reaching out more frequently.
It's almost like that silence creates this ripple effect, forcing the other person to actually confront the woman's absence and to kind of examine their own role in the dynamic. It's not about playing games.
Right. Not at all.
It's more about shifting the power dynamic.
Exactly. And the woman stepping back, she isn't trying to manipulate the other person.
Right.
She's simply just creating space for her own self-reflection and growth.
Yeah.
Remember, one of the core principles of Stoicism is that true freedom comes from mastering ourselves, not from trying to control external circumstances or other people's reactions.
I can already hear some listeners saying but wait a minute, how is sitting back and doing nothing empowering?
It's a good question. But it's not about doing nothing. It's about choosing a different kind of action.
Okay.
It's about consciously directing your energy inward towards, self-awareness and understanding your own needs and values.
So for the woman who's chosen to step back, this period of silence becomes an opportunity to ask herself some really tough questions, right? Why was I chasing after this connection in the first place? Was I compromising my own needs and values in the process?
Yes. It's a chance to kind of look inward and examine your motivations, your patterns, and maybe even some of those, societal expectations that have shaped your behavior. It's a chance to get really honest with yourself about what you want and what you deserve.
And what about the other person? What kind of opportunity does this silence create for them?
It can be a powerful catalyst for them to self-reflect as well.
Okay.
Right? They might start to realize how much they actually valued the woman's presence, her energy, her contributions to the relationship.
Yeah.
It can be a bit of a wake-up call, a chance to examine their own behavior and to consider what they might have taken for granted.
So it's not just about one person winning or losing in this scenario.
Right.
It's more about both people actually having the opportunity to grow and to potentially kind of shift the dynamic in a more balanced direction.
Exactly. And what's so powerful about this approach is that it puts the woman in a position of strength. She's no longer reacting to the other person's actions. She's choosing her own path based on what's best for her well-being.
I love that. Okay, so let's say the other person does reach out, maybe after a few days, a few weeks of silence. They're testing the waters, trying to figure out what's going on. What does that stoic approach suggest in this situation?
It emphasizes the importance of boundaries.
Okay.
The woman doesn't have to feel obligated to respond immediately or even at all.
Right.
She can choose to engage on her own terms in a way that feels authentic and aligned with her values.
It sounds like this is where that empowerment piece really comes in.
Yeah.
You're no longer dictated by the other person's actions or expectations. You're consciously choosing how you want to engage.
Absolutely. And that shift in those power dynamics can be incredibly liberating. It allows the woman to kind of reclaim her sense of self and to set a precedent for how she wants to be treated going forward.
But what if the other person gets frustrated by the silence and starts demanding an explanation? How do you handle that kind of confrontation?
That's a great question, and it's one that we're going to dive into more deeply in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, I think it's important to remember that you are not obligated to explain yourself to anyone, especially if it disrupts your peace.
So even if the other person is having a really strong emotional reaction,
Right.
the stoic approach would suggest that you don't have to get swept up in that emotional turbulence. You can choose to just stay grounded in your own sense of peace and well-being.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful place to be. It's not about being cold or indifferent. It's about choosing to respond with wisdom and clarity rather than just reacting impulsively.
This is fascinating stuff, and I'm already starting to see how this concept of stepping back could apply to so many different areas of life, not just romantic relationships. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's move on to the next stage of this process and explore what happens when those emotions start to surface.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so we've talked about that initial surprise and how stepping back can create this space for self-reflection. But let's be honest, not every reaction to this shift is going to be calm and introspective. What happens when those emotions start to kind of bubble up?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Things can get a little messy. This is where we often see a range of reactions from the other person. Anger, sadness, maybe even a bit of panic.
Yeah.
Remember, they're dealing with this disruption of what's familiar, a shift in that, power dynamic.
It's almost like that absence magnifies everything, doesn't it? Suddenly they're kind of forced to confront their own feelings, their own insecurities.
Exactly. And this is where Stoicism offers a really powerful tool, the ability to detach from the emotional roller coaster of others. The woman who has stepped back doesn't need to absorb those negative emotions or try to fix them or take responsibility for them.
This sounds really challenging, especially if you're someone who, tends to be empathetic or takes on the emotions of others.
It is, but think of it this way. You're not abandoning empathy. You're just choosing to focus your energy on what you can control, your own inner state. And by staying grounded in your own sense of peace, you're actually creating a more stable space for the other person to work through their own emotions.
So it's not about being cold or heartless. It's about setting a healthy boundary.
Exactly. You're not responsible for managing their emotional experience,
Yeah.
just as they aren't responsible for managing yours.
This brings to mind something that you mentioned earlier about the woman not being obligated to explain herself.
Right.
I can see how that ties into this whole idea of emotional boundaries. You're choosing to not get pulled into this cycle of justification or defensiveness.
Exactly. Remember, the Stoic approach really emphasizes personal responsibility.
Yeah.
You're responsible for your actions, your choices, and your inner state.
Right.
You're not responsible for the other person's interpretation of those choices.
Right.
Or for the emotions that they choose to attach to them.
That's a powerful, powerful shift in perspective. It takes the pressure off, trying to control the outcome or to manage someone else's perception of you.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you kind of create a space for like genuine self-expression.
Yeah.
You're no longer filtering your actions through the lens of what someone else might think or feel. You're acting from a place of authenticity and self-respect.
Right.
I'm starting to see how the Stoic approach can be incredibly empowering, particularly for women who may have been socialized to like prioritize the needs and feelings of others above their own.
Absolutely. Stoicism offers this framework for reclaiming that power, for setting those healthy boundaries, and for making choices that are really aligned with your own values and well-being.
But what about the flip side of those emotional responses? What if the other person doesn't explode with anger or, drown themselves in sadness?
Right.
What if their reaction is more subtle, maybe even like positive?
That's a great point. Remember that absence can sometimes create a sense of longing, a renewed appreciation for what was lost. It can kind of highlight the woman's value, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that allows the other person to really recognize what they had.
So in a way, the stepping back almost forces a reassessment of the relationship, both for the woman who initiated it and for the other person.
Precisely. And that reassessment can often lead to some really valuable insights. The other person might start to see the woman in a new light, start to appreciate her qualities more fully, maybe recognize what they stand to lose if they don't make an effort to change the dynamic.
I can see how that could lead to like a more balanced and fulfilling relationship if both parties are willing to do the work.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that the ultimate goal here isn't about manipulating the other person into coming back or changing their behavior. It's about the woman's own growth, her self-discovery, and her commitment to living in alignment with her values.
So even if the other person doesn't respond in the way that she might hope, she still gained those valuable insights and made a powerful statement about her own self-worth.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of this Stoic approach. It puts the focus on inner strength and self-mastery rather than external validation.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. The emotions have settled, some time has passed, and the other person reaches out again. What happens next?
This is where the real test of those Stoic principles comes in. The woman is now faced with a choice. Does she re-engage or does she continue on her own path?
It sounds like this decision should be based not on the other person's actions, but on her own internal compass. Like, has she gained the clarity that she needed?
Yes.
Has she established the boundaries that she wants?
Exactly. And it's not about winning or losing the other person back. It's about making a conscious choice that aligns with her own growth and well-being.
It's about recognizing that her worth isn't contingent on the other person's response. She has inherent value regardless of whether they choose to reconnect or not.
Precisely. And that's a powerful place to be. It allows her to approach the situation with a sense of clarity and strength rather than from a place of neediness or desperation.
This whole concept of stepping back and reclaiming your power is so intriguing, but I'm also kind of wondering about the potential pitfalls. What are some of the challenges or misunderstandings that might arise when applying this approach?
That's a great question, and one that deserves careful consideration. I think one of the biggest challenges is the potential for misinterpreting the Stoic approach as being like cold, manipulative, or even emotionally avoidant. It's important to remember that Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending to be indifferent.
So it's not about becoming some kind of like emotionless robot.
No, not at all. It's about choosing how you respond to your emotions rather than being ruled by them. It's about recognizing that you have the power to choose your thoughts, your actions, and ultimately your own experience.
I can see how that distinction could be easily blurred. So how do you make sure you're not using Stoicism as a way to avoid dealing with like difficult emotions or to, manipulate a situation to your advantage?
That's where self-awareness and honesty come in. It's important to check in with yourself and ask, am I stepping back because it's truly what I need? Or am I doing it to punish someone, to control them, or to avoid my own feelings?
So it's about being really mindful of your intentions and making sure they're aligned with your values and your goals for personal growth.
Exactly. And if you find yourself using Stoicism as a shield or as a weapon, that's a sign that it's time to take a step back and kind of reevaluate your approach.
I love that. It's almost like Stoicism itself is encouraging us to step back and examine our own use of its principles.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance between inner strength and, compassionate engagement with the world. It's about recognizing that you can be both powerful and vulnerable, assertive and receptive, self-assured and empathetic.
This deep dive has definitely challenged my own assumptions about relationships and the power of stepping back. But before we wrap things up, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts on how this approach can empower women, not just in romantic relationships, but in all areas of their lives. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, like exploring all those nuances of stepping back and how it can be just so powerful for self-discovery and empowerment. But
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear like your final thoughts on how this approach can empower women, not just in romantic relationships,
Right.
but in all areas of their lives.
Yeah, this isn't just about dating or romantic relationships. Stoicism really offers this, framework for navigating any relationship or situation where you might feel like you're giving away your power or compromising your own values.
Yeah. So how can we apply these principles to, say, our careers, our family dynamics, or even our relationship with ourselves?
Okay, well, let's start with careers. Imagine you're constantly seeking validation from your boss.
Right.
Or you're, overworking yourself to please others.
Yeah.
Or maybe even feeling resentful because your contributions aren't being recognized.
Mm-hmm.
Stoicism encourages you to kind of step back and ask yourself, what truly matters to me in my work? Am I aligning my actions with my values?
Right.
What boundaries do I need to set to really protect my well-being?
It's about taking ownership of your career path
Mm-hmm.
and defining success on your own terms rather than chasing that external validation.
Exactly. And that same principle applies to family dynamics, too.
Okay.
It's really easy to get caught up in, people-pleasing, trying to meet everyone's expectations, or even feeling obligated to fix their problems.
Right.
But Stoicism reminds us that we actually can't control the actions or emotions of others.
Mm.
We can only control our own responses.
So it's about setting those healthy boundaries, communicating your needs clearly, and just recognizing that you're not responsible for other people's happiness.
Precisely. And perhaps most importantly, Stoicism encourages us to apply this same compassionate detachment to our relationship with ourselves.
Ooh, okay.
We can be so harsh, such harsh inner critics,
Yeah.
constantly judging ourselves, comparing ourselves to others, and, always striving for some unattainable ideal.
It's almost like we need to step back from our own negative self-talk and cultivate this sense of self-acceptance and compassion.
Exactly. Stoicism reminds us that we're worthy of love and respect, regardless of our achievements or our perceived flaws. It encourages us to just focus on what we can control, our thoughts, our actions, and our responses to life's challenges.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is this idea of shifting our focus from trying to control those external circumstances to mastering our own inner world.
I couldn't agree more. It's really about cultivating that, inner strength and resilience that allows us to kind of navigate life's ups and downs with more grace and clarity. It's about recognizing that true empowerment doesn't come from dominating others, but it comes from mastering ourselves.
And I love how this approach can be applied to so many different areas of life, from our relationships to our careers to our relationship with ourselves.
That's right.
It's just this reminder that we always have a choice in how we respond to situations, and that sometimes the most empowering choice is to step back and create space for reflection and growth.
Beautifully said. I really hope this deep dive has encouraged our listeners to explore the power of Stoicism, and experiment with this approach in their own lives. Remember, it's not about becoming some stoic statue devoid of emotion.
Right.
It's about finding that balance,
Right.
between inner strength and compassionate engagement with the world.
It's about embracing the power of silence, the wisdom of self-reflection, and that freedom that comes from choosing our own path.
And who knows? Maybe in stepping back, we create the space for something even more beautiful and fulfilling to emerge.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this deep dive. Connect with us on social media and share your own experiences with stepping back and reclaiming your power.
Yeah.
Until next time, stay curious and keep diving deep.